Hello and welcome to Just the Way It Is. My name is Carl and this is episode 5. So this is a series of videos all about Multistrada ownership and what you can expect, what you might experience, the things you can plan for, and a lot about what to look for when buying a bike, maintaining it, servicing it, and the things that can go wrong. This is part 5, so I thought it's probably appropriate that I cover some of the problems with the Multistrada. And there are some problems, there are some issues. Most of them are electrical things you need to look out for. It's probably not enough to put you off purchasing the bike. So I'm going to break this into 2 sections. So today I'm going to talk about what other people experience and talk about with their bikes. So we need to keep these 2 things separate. So just to confirm, in case you've not watched any of the other videos, this is a 2013-14 year model. This is the dual spark version. And this is the base with the full manual suspension, no electronic suspension. Before we jump straight in, a couple of things I want to be crystal clear about. I love my Multistrada. It is without doubt the best bike I have ever owned. It has been the bike that I've had the most amount of fun on, and it has been the most versatile bike I've ever owned. However, sadly, in equal measure, it's been the most unreliable bike I've ever owned, and it's the bike that still consistently requires the most amount of maintenance and tweaking to keep things running as they should. In 2010, when the first Multistrada came out, it was without doubt the most reliable motorcycle that Ducati had ever built, and each subsequent model got better and better and better in terms of reliability. So as you work your way through the different versions over the different years, things consistently improve and get better. By the time the 2018 1260 came out, Ducati had pretty much sorted out the vast majority of problems. So just bear in mind that what this video is really all about is to make you aware of the potential problems. So if you're thinking of buying a Multistrada now in 2021, 2022, the vast majority of the problems that we're going to cover in all of these pages yet to come will have already been experienced by a previous owner, possibly fixed by Ducati under warranty, and certainly fixed by their previous owners. But it's just to give you an idea of the sort of thing that we Multistrada owners have had to work through during our ownership. So let's get going. The next 5 pages cover 2010 through to 2017, right up to the end of the DVT before it came the 1260. Okay, page 1, on the very top, poor rear brakes. The easiest thing to do is go back and look at my previous videos, video 3A and 3B, where we cover the brakes in quite some detail, specifically 3B, how to sort out the rear brakes. Next item is the fuel tank sender unit. Again, I've covered this in my previous video, which was 5A, which is what I've experienced. However, from what I can work out, and from what other owners have said, by the end of 2016, on the 1200 DVT, Ducati had finally sorted this out. So from 2017 onwards, they're very, very rarely reported as troublesome. So by then, they're already sorted. But this is a common problem that all Multistrada owners are going to face. Page 2, exhaust valve sticking or seized. Very common across a whole range of the Multistradas. It's something that you need to check on a regular basis, and really 2 or 3 times a year you need to take that heat shield off and have a look and make sure that that spindle is lubricated. I'll put some pictures up so you can have a look. They call it an exhaust valve flap. It's really a butterfly that opens and closes to restrict or open the pipe behind the exhaust box. The key thing is to keep it lubricated and keep it moving. Eventually they start to get sticky, and then if you don't address that issue at the point that they start to stick, they eventually seize solid. It causes a lot of running problems, so this is one to look for. Or you can do what I did, which is to remove it. Next thing is the steering head bearings. This is not really a common problem. This is to let you know when you can expect to have these highlighted by Ducati in a service, or when you need to start looking at them, from around 25,000 miles or 40,000 kilometers. Page 3, front fork seals. This is a common problem that really mainly affects the S or the models with the electronic suspension. It's quite a common thing for these to leak. If you're looking to buy used Multistrada, don't check it before you go for a road test, wait until after your road test. And really with a road test, you want to be a half an hour ride. And then when you come back, make sure your fingers are clean, get a white bit of tissue, carry it in your pocket, and then wipe all around both forks and have a look to see if there's any oily residue. If there is even the slightest bit on there, you need to highlight it to whoever's selling the bike, because they probably need to be changed. The base version, which is what I have, they have the 50mm Mazzocchi front forks. I've never had a problem with my fork seals, and I was looking on the forums both in the UK, in Australia and in America, and I couldn't find anyone that had problem with the Mazzocchi front fork. So maybe they are just machined and finished better, I don't know, but there doesn't seem to be a problem with the base version. Next thing is the gear selector spring. Well, you just need to go back and watch my video part 4. This really caught me out and caused quite a lot of problem. It affects a whole range of Ducatis. It's not just the Multistrada. Where that 1200 engine is used in the Monster, the Diavol and the Ex-Diavol, it's the exact same springs. So just be careful of that. Page 4, clutch master cylinder and clutch slave cylinder. This is a funny one. I should really have mentioned this in my previous video about the common problems that I've experienced. I do this so regularly that I completely forgot that I need to mention it. I have to bleed my clutch, slave and master cylinder approximately once a month, and this is not unusual. Some people have to do it every couple of weeks. If you have problems changing gear, finding neutral, or when you change into first gear from neutral while the engine's warm and you get a clunk and the whole bike jolts forward, it's quite common that this is going to be something with your clutch master cylinder and slave cylinder. Normally this means you need to bleed the system. You can sometimes, if you're very lucky, get away with just bleeding the master cylinder on top on the handlebars. 1 or 2 pumps is normally enough to get rid of any air in there, but it is a common problem not only on the Multistrada but a lot of the Ducatis. Rear chain adjustment. This is a crucial setting on your Multistrada. Under the rider's seat, you've got a small toolkit, and inside the kit is a little tool to help you measure and set up your chain adjustment. If your chain adjustment is too tight, you're going to rapidly wear out your sprockets and your chain, and you'll have instability at high speed. If your chain is too loose, you're going to have a clunky, choppy ride at low speed, and changing gear, you're going to get lots of clunking. So the setting of the chain tension is quite crucial. However, the good news is, once you've got it correct, it lasts a long time. Probably you won't need to do it again for at least a season. Page 5, rear eccentric hub. This is a common or a more common problem on bikes that have done higher mileage, or if someone uses their bike all year long, you're a commuter, and it gets lots of water on it. These can seize. If they seize solid, they're a right bugger to get out. But you can, even if you've got the smallest amount of movement with WD-40 followed by GT85 or a little bit of oil, you can free these off. It is crucial to have this moving all the way from its minimum to its maximum adjustment. It's probably a good idea. I've done it. I took my rear wheel off, took my chain of sprockets off, and removed the hub completely. And I found loads of gravel and dirt and grit inside that swinging arm. There is a hole, actually, if you look underneath your bike with a torch, right at the front of the lower swinging arm, there is a hole where all the dirt, the grit, the water gets in. It's a really silly idea. Some people put tank tape over the hole to fill it up, or you can use a bit of foam. Now the battery for the remote control, if you stop and start your Multistrada on a regular basis, it's not unusual for the dashboard to say battery low. Ignore this. That only happens if you're stopping and starting your bike several times throughout the day. You'll find that if you ignore it and then start your bike the next day and go for a longer ride, you won't get the warning. However, if you start to see this remote, the battery warning light come up on a regular basis, it probably means you need to have a new battery. I learnt the hard way. The best thing to do is to buy a battery and keep it in your tank bag or in your jacket pocket. And then wherever you go, even if the battery gives up, you've still got a spare battery on you and you're not stuck. Okay, next we're going to cover the common problems that are specific to the 2010 through 2014 Multistradas. So, page 6, the first one, cylinder heads or leaking cylinder heads or porous cylinder heads. By the time you're looking at getting a bike in 2021, 2022, you can almost be sure this isn't going to be a problem. It only really affected the very first ones that came out, 2010, 2011. A couple of them that stayed longer in the showrooms to 2012 also had the problem, but most of these have been resolved and fixed under warranty. So this is really just information more than a regular problem. I'm not aware of any Multistradas after about 2013 that have had this problem. So this is just really information. Dashboard, this affects a lot of us. I also have it occasionally with my one. You get a fog behind the outer screen. It normally happens when there's a rapid change in temperature from a damp, humid climate to something that's warm. You sometimes get a mist behind there, but also the very early ones suffered from flickering or dim dashboard lights. The neutral light stops working. A lot of them were replaced under warranty by Ducati. Page 7. Gear position sensor. Although I've put this in the 2010 through 2014 problem list, it does still sometimes occur on the 2015 onwards DVT. It's not a really common problem, but some owners still have to have this sensor replaced. Okay, so what are the indicators that this is gone? Well, the fault is normally noticed if you're having difficulty engaging neutral, or the gear indicator on the dashboard sometimes gives the incorrect reading. Now, that could well be that you're actually physically in 6th gear, but the dashboard still displays you're in 5th. This is an indicator that the gear position sensor is faulty. The other thing that's reported with these is you have a DSS or a BBS warning error message on the dashboard, and all of these things are indicators that the gear position sensor is probably either completely faulty or on its way out. The other thing that was reported, this is mainly on the early 2010, 2012s, was occasionally on the dashboard in the little box where you would see the gear indicator indicating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you have the letter C, that's the letter C for Carl, this is actually the bike asking for calibration mode to be activated. It's too much for me to go into on this short video, but if you go to the forums, it's thoroughly documented. There's a procedure. One guy did a fabulous step-by-step what to do and how to calibrate your bike if you see the letter C in the gear indicator box. The sensor well, it depends. If you've got the tools, they're relatively straightforward and easy to change, but you need a very specialized socket that fits around the cable and then into the socket at the back of the rear of the engine on the right hand side. If you look just behind the swinging arm, you'll see a sensor about 1 inch in diameter, 2 centimeters wide, but it's quite deeply sunk into the back of the engine, so you do need a special socket to get it out. But this is quite a common problem, and people still have this problem today. Page 8. These two items used to be really common. They're not so regularly reported these days, but the two problems are as follows. If you have, I think the easiest thing to say, if you have any error messages on the dashboard, this is the first thing you should check. The ABS light and the DTC light are quite common, or a speed sensor error failure on the dashboard. But really, if you have any problems, do this first. Engine running, sit on the bike, handlebars fully left, fully right. Do it slowly, several times. Can you get the fault to come and to go depending on where the handlebars are positioned? If you can, the number one problem is a broken wire in the wiring harness or the loom at the steering head. Go to your local forums. There's lots of how-to videos, how to fix it, what you need to do and what you need to check. Number 2, broken wire on the rear ABS sensor. The previous owner of my bike had this problem and had a new cable fitted, and I know lots of people on the forums have also had problems with this rear ABS sensor cable. The sensor is also the speed sensor for the dashboard, so you need to have a check where the cable comes out on the right hand side rear of the frame and joins the swinging arm. Quite often it cracks and it becomes brittle because of the heat. We already have a lot of problems with the brakes with the heat on the back, but also the cables, the original cable was too short and it puts stress on the cable inside. So this is a good place to look if you have those dashboard error messages. Page 9, faulty throttle control units. This affected around 5,500 to 6,000 Multistradas made between 2010 and 2014. I don't think this is something you need to worry about. I think Ducati recalled and did most of these under warranty. If you have any issues with a sticky or a difficult to control throttle, the first thing to do is go to Ducati and have them check your chassis number against the known database of affected bikes. They check it for free. Just go and ask them. The second one, starting problems, hot and cold. The battery was and always has been a weak point on the Multistrada. We're currently in 21, 22. There are some really good heavy-duty upgraded batteries available for the Multistrada. That's the first port of call. If you're happy with your bike, you've only recently bought it and you're going to keep the bike, have a look at the battery. If it's the original one, just replace it. You might spend anywhere between 40 and 80 euros, dollars, pounds, and you can get a really good battery. If after replacing the battery you're still not happy with the starting speed of your bike, there is a modern modification to the cables that go from the battery to the starter motor and from the battery to the chassis. They're a much heavier duty, in other words they're a thicker cable, and they can work with a much higher current, and it makes a huge difference. There's a couple of videos that people have put up on YouTube already, and it's been talked about in the forums, both in America, in Australia. It is an upgrade well worth thinking about. Page 10, map sensor or manifold absolute pressure sensor. These are attached to the throttle body. They're there to measure the pressure inside the throttle assembly as you're opening and closing the throttle. It's an important sensor for controlling the fuel injection mixture and making sure your bike is running smooth. So if you don't have any dashboard warning lights but you have running problems, this is something that really a dealer or some experienced electrical technician will have to check. They're quite hard to diagnose. On the Multistradas there are two. There's one for each cylinder on each throttle body. Check on the forums, have a look. Kill switch on the right hand side. This is quite a common problem. I've also had this on my bike. Water can get into the assembly causing problems. You need to remove the assembly and clean it out inside. Use a lubricant on the contacts and clean them up. And the other thing you can do, which I did try and it actually is very good, is inside there's a spring which pushes the button back out. And you can actually stretch the spring ever so slightly to increase the tension or the pressure that pushes the button back out. I did mine twice. The first one was a quick clean, thinking that was all it needed. It wasn't. I had to take it apart and do it properly. But since then, it's been fine. But a lot of people experienced the kill switch problem. Page 11, the last page of 2010-2014 problems. Corrosion of bolts. This really is going to depend on how your bike's being looked after, what the previous owners have done, whether you live in a very moist, wet climate. This can all have effects on the rapid rate of corrosion of bolts. The biggest one I think that most people find, and they only find this out when they go to change the rear tyre, is over the rear exhaust. There's a little tiny heat shield and there's 3 bolts that hold it on, and they seize, and they're a right little bugger to get off once they corrode. So try, once you've got the bike, unscrew them, take them off, use some copper slip or some copper ease or whatever lubricant you want to use, put them back in, and once a year just remove them and lubricate them, because when you come to change your rear tyre you have to take the back box off and you have to get the heat shield off before. You've also got some rare problems that are almost not worth mentioning. The throttle body stepper motors can fail on the early bikes, but by now, if you've got a bike that is from that sort of period, most of the problems have already been experienced and resolved. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Flaking paint on the swinging arm. Some people had a lot of problems with this and ended up having to have their swinging arms repainted. But again, I think a lot depends on the conditions. Do you go off-road? Are you on gravel? Do you ride all winter? This is fairly common things. Okay, last section, 2015-2017. This is the 1200 DVTs. We've got 3 pages to get through. If you've made it this far, congratulations. This has been a lot of stuff to go through. I've tried various different ways to present the information to make it easy to follow. I actually did 3 cuts of this video. It took a lot of time to get this together, and I found the easiest thing to do was to put all these slides up and then talk you through the slides. This is page 12, and as you can probably see, by the time we get to the 2015 through to 2017 DVT models, a lot of the issues have been resolved, a lot of things have been fixed. So let's just quickly go through these. On the early ones, 2015-16, they still had the fuel tank sender problem. Eventually, by the end of 16, in early 17, this had been fixed by Ducati, and I think very few owners actually have a fuel tank or a fuel gauge problem on the later DVTs. There was a recall by Ducati for the side stand switch that failed on the early ones. There was a problem with the throttle tube, which again Ducati fixed under warranty. Again, it affected the early 2015-16 models. And there's also a throttle position, that's the TPS, throttle position sensor. This also failed, and it can be a problem. It's not a big problem, it only affects a very few amount of people. And this again was on the early ones, fixed under warranty by Ducati. A couple of the other things that people complain about on the DVT is the mirrors vibrate a lot. It's a twin, that's what's going to happen. The other common one is the dashboard scratches quite easily. So on this particular model, I would suggest you get one of these films that you can put on to protect your dashboard screen. Okay, next page. Page 13. There was a few problems with the very early ones, the first ones that came out 2015, 2016. There were a few gremlins with the dashboard, odd lights coming on, warning lights, oil light. You weren't able to select correctly the riding modes, the gear indicator didn't work correctly. Basically, it was a random selection of dashboard issues. You can have a look at the list above, but most of these, in fact, I think all of them were fixed by ECU or software updates, which were done under warranty. But it did upset an awful lot of very early DVT owners, and they decided just to walk away from Ducati, which is a real shame. But by the end of 2016, by the time you're in 2017, pretty much all of these issues have been resolved. It's a great bike. Let's move on to the next one. Page 14. I've added this right at the very end. This really pertains to the early 2010-2014 models. Here in Germany, there was a motorbike magazine called Motorrad, and they did a wonderful 50,000 kilometer test on a 2012 Multistrada. And what they did, they basically used it and abused it for 50,000 kilometers, and then they had some engineers completely strip the bike. And I mean completely strip the bike. They had the engine out, the gearbox out, they split the cases, they took the heads off, they took the valves out, they took the crank bearings out, they took the gearbox apart, and they measured and checked everything inside to see how it compared to the tolerances that were set by Ducati. And it's a wonderful read. The original one obviously was in German. I've put the link on the screen and I'll put the link below in the description. Somebody did translate this to English. I have got a copy, but it's not mine to publish, so I can't really do that. If I can find the link to the English version, I'll put it on the comments list below. You can also just go online to your local forums. I think I've seen it on the UK forums and on the forums in the USA. So if you're quite technically minded, it is a wonderful read because they took so much apart, and the reviewers at the end, they were astonished. So well done for making it through to the end, and let's get on to the very last part. What's coming up next for me? Well, you know from the previous videos, I'm a fully trained technician. So normally I never send any of my cars or bikes for servicing. I do it all myself. However, this is a Ducati, and the value of the bike is quite important, and depreciation can be quite high on Ducatis. So I'm going to keep going with the maintenance schedule at Ducati. It pains me, it is painful to hand over 350 euros. I think that's what it's going to be for the next intermediate service or the interim service. It's basically an oil and filter change and a check over, something that I do at the start of every year, and I can do it for about 70 euros, and I've got to pay 350. However, what I want is that stamp in the service book, so that should I ever, when I get round to deciding to change or stop riding motorbikes, my Ducati has got a full Ducati service history. So it's a bit of a painful pill to swallow, but that's what's coming up next in about a week's time. I'm a little bit over the mileage for the next service. The next service was due at 36,000. I'm sitting at 38,800, I think, but that was because I was recently on a tour for 3,000 kilometers in the Black Forest or the Schwarzwald in Germany. Fabulous place to go. but that's the next thing, is the servicing. So I hope I haven't bored you. I hope you've enjoyed it, and more videos to come. Thank you very much.